morning, everybody. What time do we have? Look at you guys, 8:59.
Yes. The triangle. Yeah, it's the triangle. The triangle. The triangle is the carrot. The cowbell is the stick. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Heather Constable. I have the lucky and happy job of being the director here at Sedgwick. I coordinate all of the research activities and madness, and it's so wonderful to see friendly faces. Thank you for taking the time to come out and spend the day here. We're really, really excited to have you. So I'm going to do a couple of housekeeping things and then logistics about the program, and then just a short history spiel about why we're here. So I want to thank the TNC and Sedgwick staff for putting this on. Thank you so much for wrangling all of this. It's been so great to have your support, and TNC, you guys are on it. Emily's probably still outside. There she is. Yes. Sorry, she vanished. Yes, she's so organized, and you probably got all your communications from her. And also like to thank Mark and Frank and Kristen and Elizabeth, who are on the organizing committee, and everybody who chipped in to make these things work. We're gonna thank Kelly and Kai and Linda, and if I've forgotten your name, apologize. So that's really great. And the Sedgwick staff and researchers are some of the hardest working people, and they are just so clever and flexible. You guys can problem solve like nobody's business. For example, we have a great horned owl who set up nest in the center of the oak grove right out here in the spring, and when we're planning on having all of our events around the oak grove. And so they've come up with brilliant solutions for sneaking picnic tables out and rearranging things. So if you want to see the owl, you can't go now. You can go later. I promise we will get outside. I promise. So they've just been a huge help, all of you. I'd also like to thank in particular Liza Johnson is one of our staff members here. She's moving to Carmel to another job. She's probably helped you guys with a lot of your research. She's probably helped with fire and logistics and pulling you out of the mud and fixing your car, telling you what things to look out for. So let's thank Liza, and please exchange information. We're going to be blowing up her phone for years to come. And so for the logistics, most important thing, safety first. So the AED and the first aid kit are here in the lobby. If you need anything, this is shelter in place. If we do have an emergency, if there's a fire or an earthquake, we've got a one-lane road. So we all stay here until we get the okay that we can evacuate together. We're all on Wi-Fi. I hope you got the Wi-Fi code. And so it's right there. Thank you, Mark. He's my Vanna White. It's just Sedgwick, but it's tipped and ordered guests. And so if you need to make calls, you're on Wi-Fi calling in the event of a power outage. I'm not going to cover all the crazy things that can happen in Sedgwick. In the event of a power outage, you should be able to get cell reception with line of sight to the south. So there's Broadcast Peak, which shoots our internet, and then there's cell towers up there. So if you're at a high point, you should be able to get cell reception. Snakes are out, as always. It's a very snaky place, but it's kind of cool today, so sorry you might not be able to get to see them. And then the other important logistics, coffee that way, bathrooms that way, going around here, and you got the Wi-Fi codes. All the food's in here for lunch. The food will be presented in the lobby, but you can eat in a mixture of places. There's like the screen room, there's a patio out here, and then across the road is a bunch of picnic tables. So that's where we can have lunch. The reception will be out front. The table is where we're going to set up the booths. Thank you, Kai, for arranging the booths and all the other drinks. And then we're also having a poster session here around the reception. So I invite you to come back inside and look at these posters before you go out. So I don't need to tell you guys about the value of natural reserves or what we do here, explain all of that. I just wanted to point out that it does bear the name of Sedgwick, which was Duke Sedgwick donated the reserve to UCSB in the 60s. And so you think of a to do something like that. But of course, it takes all sorts of people. There's a history lesson in the foundation of Sedgwick where regular people came together and did grassroots fundraising and grassroots information and held music festivals and used their artwork and their writing and their law skills and community organization skills to raise funds to actually save Sedgwick and prevent it from becoming a development. So that's important. It's not any single person. It takes all of us chipped in. And some of the people who helped with that were actually graduate students and faculty people and land stewards. So we each have a role. We can't just like congratulate ourselves. Like we put a fence around it and we're done. You guys know it takes years and years of effort to prevent that from keeping it up and from learning from it. And protecting lands is a lot like protecting research. So having that argument of like, why are we doing this? What is the immediate benefit? What is the financial benefit to this? How can we commodify this? Do you need this many people working here? Do you really need that money? All those kinds of things. Yeah. So that's an ongoing, and it's not just you as researchers, and it's not just us as field stations. We need all of the help that we can get, community-wide and just region-wide and statewide to help support this research and continuing happening. So we ask, why are we still doing that? We're carrying on a tradition of thousands of years. The Chumash were the original stewards of this land. And they're also the original researchers. So when we think about the questions we have now of how do all these organisms interact and what is the seasonality and what is decadal changes and patterns that we're seeing, and how do we harness these elements that are shaping us and shaping our land, fire and water and light and wind, and what do they mean? And so we're continuing that tradition, and it's a great tradition. The tools have changed. We're trying to digitize everything. We've got GIS to look at it with new perspectives, but fundamentally it's an oral tradition as well. And so that's what we're doing here. We're meeting together, we're seeing each other face to face, we're sharing the meal, we're talking about what we learned, we're talking about our follies. So if you have lessons that are examples that other people cannot do, that is also important. So I hope that you'll enjoy your time today and make some good connections and enjoy all the science talks that we have. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Heather. Welcome, everybody. I'm Mark Reynolds. I'm director of the Nature Conservancy's Point Conception Institute, the research center at the Jack and Laura Dangerman Preserve. And on behalf of the Nature Conservancy and the Kretz Center, I'd like to welcome you to, if you're counting, this is the third PCI symposium, but it's the first PCI and Kretz symposium. So thank you all for coming today. I'm just going to set a little bit of the framework of why we're here, and also a little bit of the outline for the day, and then I'll turn it over to Frank also to continue the welcome. So we don't have to look very far to find indicators that there are threats to nature across the planet, and those threats are growing. And we don't have to look very far to see that the ecological responses, the species level responses, are all fairly dire and declining. And as we think about this moment that we're in, this determining decade, where we're either going to help change this course, these trajectories, or turn it around, or face a really set of dire consequences for the planet, it really compels us to think about how we engage science and engage conservation practice in this particular moment. And I think above all, it compels us to work together, work smarter. Our science is better when we do it together. It also compels us to think about how we can have greater impact in leveraging the places that we work and the stories that we can tell from those places. And that's a lot of why we're together here today. The Dangerman Preserve was founded in 2017, and it came online at a time when we were really conscious of this moment in planetary history and the opportunity to really leverage extraordinary landscapes like the Dangerman Preserve, where there's 8 miles of coastline, 25,000 acres of intact Southern California coastal ecosystems, and to really think about this in a new way as a nature preserve, yes, but also as a center for learning and a center for innovation. We knew this was an audacious challenge that we were trying to accept and aspire to. And we also knew that we needed to look to others for lessons learned, for approaches, for templates, for mentorship, for guidance. And we were really fortunate in the early days of the Dangerman Preserve to reach out to many of you in this community and with UC Santa Barbara and find those mentors, those examples, those templates, those approaches that we could adapt and adopt at the Dangerman Preserve. And we had to look no further really than the Kretz Center here and at the Sedgwick Reserve for how to begin the work of turning the Dangerman Preserve into a living laboratory and a center of learning and innovation. This led to the founding of the Point Conception Institute. The Point Conception Institute is the research center based at the Dangerman Preserve, and it has a mission to really create a conservation research enterprise based at the preserve by harnessing the power of open data and open science, the work that all of you do, and bring that together in diverse research collaborations, accelerated by data stewardship, data sharing, innovative technological solutions. And what we're doing here today is really thinking about the lessons learned, the ways we can continue to work together, strengthen these partnerships, and export those lessons learned. So looking to Sedgwick, Kretz was an obvious early partner for us, and it also helped us think about this amazing ecological transect that we have here in Santa Barbara County, to think of having available for scientific research areas at the coast, at Point Conception, at this dynamic convergence zone of ecosystems in Northern and Southern California, all coming together in this coastal area, influenced by the Santa Barbara Channel, and to think about the ability to also have paired research taking place from the long research legacy at the Sedgwick Reserve. So thinking about this as a transect led very early on to some really exciting approaches with how we think about the ways to use remote sensing and better understand environmental change across this ecological transect. We were able to work with our colleagues at NASA and at JPL to fly this transect with Avarice hyperspectral imagery in 2022. This was a partnership that grew directly out of the work between the Nature Conservancy and the Sedgwick team and Frank's team at Kretz Center. And it's leveraged a terrific amount of data and subsequent investigation. It's a good example of how we think about this as a transect. We've also been able to work together on prescribed fire through our fire exchange training program, the TREX program, which the Nature Conservancy leads throughout North America. We've had a number of successful TREX burns that have taken place at Sedgwick and at the Dangerman Preserve, and that's really accelerated the amount of fire science taking place at the two properties and the ways that we continue to work together on fire. Those are just a couple of examples. There'll be many more presented today. So much is happening across this transect and at these two places that, in fact, there wasn't really time on the program for everybody to be able to speak. We hope to have you back for another subsequent symposium and make sure that we hear all of the stories of all the great research that's happening. Today, the outline of the symposium is really to share our findings and our research together to grow this collaborative research community, which is all of you and which continues to build, and create a space for creative thinking about how to use scientific findings to accelerate conservation. At the end of the day, we'll have a pitch session to harvest all of your ideas for how we can continue to grow these partnerships. So here's a little outline of the day or the run of show. Soon we'll go into session and there'll be 6 presentations that are a mix of 15-minute talks and shorter lightning talks. We'll have a break, promise there'll be a break at 10:50. And then we'll be back in session at 11 o'clock until lunch. Lunchtime, we're gonna have a group photo. I'm not sure whether it's gonna happen before or after, but we'll assemble everybody and try and get a nice picture of everybody. I think there's a photographer that will take headshots as well. If you're looking for a headshot for your portfolio, you can get one today. We'll go back into session at 1:30 with another set of presentations. We'll take a break at 3. And I hope you all got cards on your way in, but we'll be harvesting some ideas and leading a pitch session for the last hour of the day. We'll close and have a reception, and we can enjoy some of these posters at the end of the day. But thank you all for coming. This is really fantastic to have everybody together, especially in this moment. And we really appreciate your partnership and all of the great work that you're doing. So I'm going to turn it over to Frank now. Thanks, everybody.
Good to see everybody. Thanks for being here. It's really been fun organizing this with TNC, Mark, Elizabeth, and everybody else. We have really cultivated a very nice relationship between the university and TNC over the last 7 years. The Kretz Center was formed at the same time the Dangerman Preserve was established. We're all kind of still in toddler mode, I would say, in terms of kind of getting all of the research and the stewardship organized and so forth, and getting the long-term science envisioned and with your help getting it in place. But there's our mission, and we do have kind of a focus, thanks to our funding source, Linda Duttenhaber and Morton Kretz, on California environmental problems, science to help identify and solve them. We work at the Kretz Center, all two of us, Kristen and myself, but with a lot of help from the Sedgwick staff. We're kind of joined at the hip with the staff here by doing this. And I think many of you we've interacted with, so you know how we work. And we're basically trying to get you some advice, data that we can help you with to help you plan and implement your research. We have funding for graduate students that we use every year to help people get started on projects or help with existing projects. We do a lot of field assistance and logistical support for those of you who can't be on site at a particular time. But the real message and the thing that you'll see today is just how much is involved in this idea of building a regional network of like-minded scientists who are interested in both discovering more about the environment we're living in, but also turning those discoveries into actual better management practices, better conservation decision-making, and so forth. So I'll just use this example. Mark already mentioned the Trex, but I kind of think of the 3 dimensions of Sedgwick Fire now as being our vegetation management program, the Trexes, and the lake fire monitoring as well. So when I look at this map, it's so interesting because in 2017, it would have been a very different looking map. But the colors on this map all have something to do with fire. About 3/4 of the reserve, of the 6,000 acre Sedgwick Reserve, now are kind of seen through this lens of fire. The green area to the outside of the Sedgwick is the vegetation management program for the Spalding Ranch and the Midland School. We do a lot of work with them as well. Inside the reserve, the light blue areas are areas of what's called a vegetation management program. It's a programmatic permit with CAL FIRE and Santa Barbara County Fire for a 10-year burn program with 2 goals. One goal is to improve public safety by fuel management. At the same time, written into that VMP is the idea to do research to improve our use of prescribed burning in these foothill ecosystems. And that includes things like changing the time between fires in some of these burn units. The little dark areas are inside the larger blue areas are the Trex burns that we've conducted so far. So inside our VMP areas where we have these permits, we're actually working with TNC to do burning. And then the big orange blob in the northeast is the lake fire, which burned about 3,200 acres of the reserve in July 2024. And so when you put all that together, we have quite a lot of fire on our mind these days. And I'll just say that Trex has really been something many of you have been exposed to. You'll hear something about it today in some of the talks. Originally envisioned by TNC and the Forest Service as a way of kind of getting community-based prescribed burning to meet local community objectives with training and land stewardship and ecological stewardship in mind. We've had 3 Trexes here, 8 to 9 days, each Trex, 40 to 50 participants, and then a lot of trainers as well. They're really an amazing place to see these different partnerships come together in one place around a particular theme. Very diverse participants and partners. And we're doing it right next to some of our stakeholder neighbors like the Woodstock Ranch subdivision, where we're actually trying to simultaneously accomplish vegetation fuel management, but learning as we go to see whether this is really going to make any sense and how to do it better. And so that's the beauty of prescribed burning, is that you can plan your research with the people that are doing the burns. You can get your pre-burn measurements, you can get your during burn measurements, and you can connect the dots to the post-burn recovery processes. Many of you in the room are in these different ologies. The lake fire, by comparison, was one where we just sort of inherited a big event. This map shows the 40,000 acre lake fire. That little square encloses Sedgwick, and this is a daily progression map. So the darker the colors, the redder the colors, the later in the burn during that week-long burn the lake fire burn. So you can see that when it got into Sedgwick, it was late in the burn. It was relatively hot still, but lower winds. So a lot of what we have inside Sedgwick is back burning. They were actually backfiring into the other parts of the lake fire up on Figueroa Mountain. And so this gives us opportunities, particularly in the northern part of the reserve on our metamorphic rocks, to do things like look at serpentine grassland recovery. There's before, there's after, right after the lake fire. The largest, most extensive vegetation type on the reserve is coastal sage scrub. It gives us a chance to look at the recovery processes in this ecosystem type and variations in burn severity and how that variation might affect community recovery. We've got a lot of oak woodlands, and so a lot of you here are also thinking about how oaks are impacted by and recover from these kinds of wildfires and prescribed fire events. And last but not least, we had about 11 miles of dozer lines and another 17 miles of widened roads and retardant drops across the reserve. And we actually have a lot of help from our docents who have volunteered to walk these lines to do things like weed monitoring to make sure we don't have new invasive weeds showing up in these dozer lines. So I think about this map and I think of it just as emblematic of what we're here for today. It's just a time to, you can pull together scientists, stakeholders, you can do kind of somewhat use-inspired research in a way that's long-term planning. We have a 10-year permit to work with. And hopefully we can get some things that will lead us to adaptive stewardship here, as well as a lot of new fire science. So again, really happy that you're here and have a great day. I'm looking forward to your talks. Thank you.